Okay. Welcome to 2D Web Solutions, Episode 5. Each episode, you ask questions and we find solutions. I'm Arelthia Phillips, founder of Pintop Solutions, LLC.
And I am Kerry Carron, founder of Ultimate Solution, LLC. Each episode, we answer up to 5 different web design and development business-related questions from our visitors. So hop on over, visit our website, 2dwebsolutions.com, anytime to submit your question.
Okay, so today's topic is attracting and keeping ideal clients. So, Kerry, when we're talking about ideal clients, what do you look for in an ideal client?
I like to ensure that my clients are appreciating and understanding my value. I need them to be flexible and work with me on my schedule so that I can meet what they need for their schedule. I don't typically like to work on deadlines. I like to give myself some leeway, so that's why I also need to have my clients be somewhat flexible with their time. Do you have any hoops that you jump through or anything like that as far as what do you find for your ideal client?
Well, first thing for my ideal client is they have to understand that as their developer, I'm their partner. I'm not their employee, but a partner. So when they come to me, I expect for them to already, understand that I'm a professional and that I'm a professional at what I do. I know what I'm doing. And so I need some trust from them. And a lot of times I find that when people trust you, they're more willing to provide you with the information that you ask from them, such as their budget. If they don't trust you, they're going to feel really uncomfortable giving you their budget. But without that budget, it's hard for me to gauge where that client is in this whole process. Also, I like a client that understands that I have a certain way that I do business, a certain time that I update people, a certain amount, like they don't expect me to call them every single day. Because if you expect to get a phone call from me every day updating you on your project, then you are definitely not my ideal client. Because I feel like this, my ideal clients, they have a business or organization to run, and staying in contact with them every day is not the best for them in running their business or the best for me. So yeah, that's some of what I look for in my ideal clients.
I agree, and one of the things you mentioned was building that trust, talking about them sharing pretty much intimate business details with you regarding their budget. And one of the best things that I look for in working with anybody, not just clients, but anybody across the board, is are they able to communicate well with me?
Yes, I think that's so important. So now we've talked a little bit about what we're looking for in an ideal client. How do you actually identify someone as being your ideal client, Kerry?
I have a number of processes that I use to qualify my clients for me. The primary method that I use is meeting one-on-one, and I will typically try to keep that as close to 30 minutes as possible so it doesn't eat into any time that I actually have. And I use that time to discuss with the person my policies and their policies, their expectations and my expectations, developing that core sense of communication, and also using that time for me to determine if this is the kind of person that I really want to be working with, or conversely, if I am the right or ideal person for them to be working with, can I teach them or can I provide them the services that they really need? So that's my primary method. I also have a secondary method, which is if somebody hasn't been able to schedule an appointment with me, and they just come across my website, I have a pre-qualification questionnaire, and it's very in-depth and it asks a lot of questions. And if somebody submits that and doesn't answer the questions, then right off the bat, I know that they're not going to be an ideal client for me necessarily. Now, if I do receive some communication from them via that questionnaire, oftentimes I'll reach out and ask them to make the appointment, because some people just don't know how to put into writing what it is they need, and they need that one-on-one. Other times, I may also go through that qualification consultation first and then send a client over to give me all of the details of their project. And I use those two methods to pre-qualify my clients. What do you use?
Something, before I even tell what I use, something that I want to follow up with you on what you said, because I'm interested to know, how did you come up with the 30-minute session and say, instead of, say, a 15-minute session or an hour session? How did you come up with 30 minutes?
30 minutes is just the time that I'm willing to give somebody to listen and to understand. It gives them 15 minutes to tell me about themselves, and it gives me 15 minutes for me to explain what my policies are. And then I also can follow up and refer them to where I have that written online and get any signed contracts or signatures of basic understanding of my policies.
Okay, great. All right, I do things a little bit different than the way you do, Kerry. For example, if someone contacts me, when someone contacts me about a new project, especially like a new client, they start out with the basic questionnaire on my website. It used to be longer, but now it's a lot shorter, where basically I just get some very basic information from them. And one of the things on there has to do with the budget. And I keep going back to the budget because sometimes people have, they don't really know what stuff, the price of stuff, the value of it, and so they expect it to be a lot less, especially when you look at, let's say, commercials on TV that's promising you a free website or this elaborate piece of software for almost no money. But and so that's like the first step for identifying if they're one of my clients, is if their budget range is not even on my questionnaire form, because I start my form with that budget at the minimum that I'm willing to go for a project. And then, so once they send that questionnaire to me, then they receive a series of follow-up questions from me, basically where I want to get an idea of what they have now, whether or not that works for them, what they want for the new project. Also, I want to see, why do they want to make changes? Because if they're just looking to make it pretty, then I'm going to send them to somebody like Kerry. I don't want to deal with that. So I want to get a real good feel of what they're really looking to accomplish with their project. And sometimes, like Kerry said, it's hard to get people to put it down in writing. That's why sometimes instead of asking them what they want, ask them, okay, so what's not working for you? And that gives me a pretty good idea. And then from there, if it really piques my interest, then I might give them like 3 options to choose a time to get on the phone with me. And then I typically do 15 minutes, okay? And in that first 15 minutes, I know whether or not I'm willing to spend more time on the phone with you. So if, let's say, I'm interested in that client, I like their project, and that's very important to me, because if I don't like your project, if I don't feel like you're really into it or is really pushing you, then those are not people that I want to work with. I want to work with people that are so motivated by their project that they believe in it. It's not just a way for them to make money. And so after 15 minutes, I either tell them, something about how, okay, well, right now, based on what you've explained to me, I'm not the person for you to handle this project, or I recommend you talk to this person, or I'll tell something else, but I think I'm going on about this too long. But then if I really like the project, though, I can stay on the phone with them as long as 45 minutes. And that's pretty much my limit, though.
Yeah, and a lot of times my first 15 minutes are spent determining whether or not I really like the project and the person, like you're talking about, and qualifying them that way. And I do use a lot of that 30 minutes to get the answers to the questions that you send in the follow-up. So by the end of my conversation, my end of 30 minutes, I already know a rough estimate of what I'm going to charge them, and I will let them know what that is. And it is very broad. It's very broad. It's going to start at my bare minimum and then go up through, if they have any kind of scope creep added onto it, because everybody ends up having something they forgot to mention during the briefing or whatnot. So I give them a huge range, probably a range of over $1,000. And then what I'll do is I'll follow up with that email and let them know what happened at that meeting, and then come up with the final price. And I usually know even by the end of the meeting whether or not that person is in fact going to pay me. And so a lot of times, even after that first 30 minutes, I will be able to send an invoice and be able to start the project the next day should I have time available.
Okay. So
let's move on to the next question. And let's say you have a client that has been disqualified and you've already made contact with them and have started somewhat of a relationship. So how do you say no to the clients that have been disqualified through your process?
Kerry, that's a real good question. And I'm going to give the typical developer answer. It depends. Okay. It depends on the reason they are disqualified, because a lot of times they're either disqualified because of their deadline, their expectations, they don't have goals for the project, personality conflict, or moral conflict. Like certain types of projects I will not take on, depending on what they need. Like if they need a pretty website, no, sorry, can't help you. And then their budget. So those are some of the typical reasons why people are disqualified for my process. So once I look at all that, the next step starts, let's say if my availability, I'm unable to meet their deadline either based on my availability or the complexity of the project. So I'll just tell them right out, that if it's a complex project, then I'll tell them that for this project I need at least this amount of time. Give them the exact details of what it will be needed for the project. And sometimes people will be like, oh, I didn't know it would take that long. Okay, then I can do that. Sometimes, like the deadline is like, oh no, I have to have it. Oh, well, you know what? Maybe I can send you to someone else because my next available date is in 3 weeks. I can't even start this for 3 weeks. So I'll send that, refer them to someone else for that. Then sometimes I may tell them that based on the project expectations that I'm just not the right person for this project. And you come to me with certain types of projects and I'm going to say no right off the bat. And I'm pretty clear about that because a lot of my clients are nonprofits, mostly Christian-based organizations. And so I try not to do anything far off from that, anything that I would have a moral conflict with. And then personality conflicts. If you think you know more about what I do than I do, then we cannot work together. And I'm a pretty straightforward kind of person, so I don't like a bunch of drama and talking and stuff. So that can be a personality conflict for me. Depending on what you need, like I said, I don't do pretty websites, but if you need a solution to a problem, you need a fix for something, maybe you need a new plugin, or maybe you need to add some functionality to your site, or maybe you do need a site redesign, but not necessarily from a beautiful website point of view, but more of a, okay, this website, I need it to do this, but it's not doing it, then yes, that's a need I can handle. But if it's something that I cannot handle, then I'll refer you to someone else. Budget.
I totally, you're right on track, and you've mentioned almost everything pretty much verbatim as to how I would answer that. One of the things you said is, you're in the business of finding solutions, and that is so true. That's what we do. We find solutions for people. So I prefer not to say no outright, but I also want to listen to what their need is, and I do want them to be successful in whatever their endeavors are. So I'm always very, very careful not to burn any bridges. So I keep options on the table for them, like you were saying, if you didn't have enough time, if they're willing to wait and I do want to work with them, I'll let them know what I do have available or what I can complete in the short time frame they have, or if I can rearrange some of my clients that may not have as high of priorities and I can squeeze them in and they want to pay an additional price for my rush rate, I can sometimes do that. I'm always keeping the options open to helping other people in the network of people that I work with to give them work if it's something that I can't do. And thankfully I have people like you on board who I can refer out, the development stuff to. That saves me time in the long run. It gives them, what they need, and everybody's happy. And having those moral boundaries that you mentioned, that is so important too. You have to work with people who are like-minded, and for me especially, I won't go into any business relationship unless it is a win-win for both parties involved. And if it's not, if somebody is trying to take advantage of me, then they're not the right fit for me. And I certainly am not going to go out and try to take advantage of somebody else, because I know what it's like to be felt like that I have been taken advantage of. And it's not a nice feeling. It makes you feel, it just irritates you and makes you angry, and it just is just not a good situation.
Yeah.
So if I don't have time to complete something when they need it, I let them know that, and I too will refer people out. So I hear what you're saying there.
So, Kerry, let's say you have this client and you thought that they went through the process and you thought they were going to be an ideal client, but it turns out they're not the ideal client. How do you normally handle that?
I handle it with kid gloves. Again, I don't want to burn any bridges. At the same time, if I start feeling like I am being taken advantage of, that's typically when I decide, okay, I need to break off the relationship that I have with this client. I do want to be cognizant of the work that I am doing. It needs to be up to par. It needs to give them the solution that they want. When it becomes evident that I no longer wish to work with this person, or they're feeling frustrated with the amount of work that I'm doing and the amount of time it's taking me, I try to be very strict in what my boundaries for the project are. I don't allow any more kind of scope creep at all, whereas with somebody that I enjoy working with, I may take on or throw in a little extra just because. So it's things like that, and I'm very outright with them or forthcoming with them, and I let them know I'm no longer feeling comfortable with this situation, and I really want to just focus on finishing this, and then let me find you somebody who's going to be a better fit. I don't want to leave them high and dry. I don't want to badmouth them, and I don't want to burn any bridges in case there's work down the road that I might be a better fit for with them. How do you handle those things?
Well, normally when I have a client that turns out to be less than ideal, I just remind them of the original project specifications, what we originally agreed on, what I said, what I put in writing that I will do, and what they're expected to do. And normally we can at least complete the project, the current project. And then if they want to do something new at the end, we can discuss that again, or I'll refer them to someone else. But I find sometimes in situations like this, especially when that client tends to be maybe they're just not there. Let me put it this way: maybe they're just upsetting me. I have this special person that I go to. I'm like, okay, Meg, can you look at this email and tell me what I need to change in it before I send this? And she's very good at doing that. Just to make sure it says only what I wanted to say, and it keeps the emotion out of it.
It's a great technique to do that. Anytime you're writing any kind of correspondence that's dealing with what could potentially be what is the word, offensive in any way, shape, or form. And I do the same thing with a lot of other developers and designers that I work with. I'll write my email and I'll send it to them and say, hey, does this sound okay? And I've reciprocated as well with that. And it's a lot of times people are really close and but you just have that extra set of eyes and it sees things just a little bit different. So Aletha, do you educate your clients, the ones that are less than ideal? Do you continue to try to educate them? Or is it basically, finding and defining and setting your own boundaries to ensure that you guys can continue to have that positive and healthy business relationship?
I do educate them to an extent. Let's say, for example, I get an email from a client that says, well, we've been working together, but you're charging me this amount, but somebody over here said they can do it for this amount. And so I'll educate them basically to the extent, well, based on the requirements that you've provided me, this is what it will cost for me to do this project, basically. And I just go on. And yes, I'm pretty sure you can find somebody somewhere else that'll charge you less for it, but this is what it costs for me to give you what you've asked for. If you don't want all of this, then we can negotiate the whole deal. So little things like that. It takes a little bit of education just on why they're being charged. That's why in my estimates they're so detailed as in what they're paying for, not necessarily how I'm going to do it, but what costs what. But a lot of times I find that since over the years going through this process that I put some of the stuff that I put in my estimates and that goes on before I even get to the estimate process, it prevents a lot of these issues just from being burned in the past, from really being in bad situations. So.
Oh yeah, I agree completely. And I find that if I run into a problem client or somebody who is less than ideal for what I like to work with, that's when I go back and I tweak my terms and conditions, I tweak different things, I add things in,
Yes.
And it gets better and better and easier as you go on. And pretty soon you realize exactly what those boundaries are, and when somebody does start scoffing at price or whatnot, you can say, you know what, I understand how you feel about that, but I'm running my business the way that it works best for me. You don't have to like it. And if you don't, that's fine. I respect that opinion. And here's, some other ways and people you can talk to.
So, Kerry, what do you do when an ideal client decides to leave you?
Well, first of all, I always want to check and find out why they're leaving. In most cases, people will tell you that upright. Now, if they don't, then it may not be the initial correspondence that I have with them, but I always start out with a custom email that describes everything that they're going to need that I was currently doing for them that they will need to replace in order to maintain the standard that they have already established on their website. And that may be a list of all of the plugins that they have purchased through me that they'll need to continually renew, a reminder of security and the importance of updating their website on a regular basis. And I will oftentimes provide their cost of doing that. And then, because in most cases I find people think that they want to leave because they think they're paying me too much. And then once they get that email, they're like, oh, I guess I really don't want to leave. I'm just going to stay and use your services because I'm getting a pretty good deal.
Yeah.
And they are, because I have the expertise and the skills and the knowledge to be able to do it in a time frame that works for me, that isn't always going to work for everybody. So what do you do?
I handle things a little bit different. Yes, when they send me that, I send them the email with the information that they need to, anything they need to their website. But I don't list out all the plugins and stuff. I basically believe in letting them learn the hard way. And so I send them the information, what they'll need for their website, let them figure out what it's going to cost, let them figure out all the work involved, because eventually they'll come back to me. But I also ask them what I can do to improve, whether it's a service or a product that I've provided them with, what can I do to improve it? And a lot of times that's when they come back and say to me, oh, there's nothing wrong with it, I just, whatever reason they're canceling for. And then sometimes that'll get them like, never mind, I want to continue. Or they do cancel, and I'll let them cancel. And a lot
Oh,
of times people are thankful for that because I don't give
oh
them a lot of
yes.
hassle. And so they'll come back to me later and they're like, okay, I want to start this up again, or I want to continue with you. So I just let them learn the hard way because then they appreciate what I do a lot more.
Oh, I agree. I agree with that completely as well. And it's amazing when you let people go amicably. I can't say that word. I totally screwed that word up. But when you leave on good terms with somebody, it gives them the ability to come back should they decide to come back. And a lot of times, I have to remind myself when I get the notification that somebody does want to leave. Your instinct, human nature, is to say, "Oh God, what did I do? Why are they leaving? I don't want them to go." But you have to also look at it from a business perspective and remove your emotions from that situation and say to yourself, if this client does not want to use my services, then I'm no longer the right person for them. And I have to let them go because they're not going to be my ideal client anymore. And I really don't want any clients that are not my ideal client. So I agree, you have to just let them go.
Yeah. So how do you keep your ideal clients, Carrie?
I think communication is the number one thing that keeps any client your client, whether it's good customer service, quick follow-ups, regular reports, whatever it takes to really have a relationship with that person. And if time goes by and you haven't followed up or haven't done that, to reach out and find out how they're doing. And, during your communications, also listen for the details of their life so that when they come back for the next appointment or the next follow-up, you can say, hey, by the way, how's your daughter so-and-so? Or did your son ever graduate from that college he was attending? And it's okay if you don't know names and stuff. You can say, by the way, what was your wife's name again? How's she doing? Things like that. Or it's those little things and truly developing the relationship with a customer, a partnership, like you mentioned earlier. It's not really a client webmaster relationship. It's a partnership in meeting the goals and accomplishing the tasks at hand. So communication.
Okay, great. That's very similar to what I do. Like I do a lot of communication with my clients because sometimes I may have a client that I do a project for them and I may not do another project for them until 6 months later. I have some that are monthly ongoing things, but for the most part, they'll contact me for a project about every 6 months, maybe a year. But I try to make sure they receive something from me monthly. That way, I'm still on their mind. They know I'm still here. So I typically try to do at least monthly, but sometimes they'll get two things from me during the month. Sometimes if I see something just out, like I'm reading an article and I like, hey, this is related to this client's business, or this client has a book related to this, or this client may be interested to them, I'll just send them a link and say, hey, I saw this, you might be interested in it, just to let them know that I've not forgot about them. And then I do other little things too, just so that they can see that, okay, yeah, that's why I have her. She does this or she does that. And maybe just hey, how's it going? Everything okay? I haven't heard from you in a while. Is there anything I can do for you? I might just send them just like every 6 months, how can I help you? Or why did you choose me? Or what can I do better next time? Constantly asking their feedback. Continually getting feedback from my clients. So, yeah.
Yep, that's great. So that wraps up pretty much the show. So if you'd like to tweet today's tip, it is set boundaries, pre-qualify, and follow up.
All right, so before we go, we want to encourage you to leave us your comments or submit your web design development questions on our website located at 2dwebsolutions.com.
And if you're ready to immerse yourself in our community, be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel or our podcasts, which are currently available through iTunes, Android, RSS, email, and Stitcher.
And we'll see you on the next Aspects of Web Design and Development 2D episode. Remember,
when you ask questions,
we find
solutions.
All right.